Hello, class. Today I will be reviewing a book called Beyond the Hole in the Wall: Discover the Power of Self-Organized Learning by Sugata Mitra and Nicholas Negroponte. So really the only main theme is, as you'll see in this PowerPoint, is SOUL, which stands for Self-Organized Learning Environment, and how we can integrate that into the classroom as teachers, which is ironic, but I will explain that later in the summary. And I do just want to say these relevant details. Sugata Mitra, which is the author, is pro self-taught classes, as he is and was the main force behind the hole in the wall experiment. And all of this was started in India, which I'll explain in the summary, but I just want to put a photo here and explain the child-friendly, because it's only for children, no adults, child-friendly design for the kids to come and use these computers. And we will come back to this photo. I just want you to right now see how child-friendly, and the colors were really nice for kids and kids only. And I'll explain that later. So really, this summary, this book is about children and learning in a highly connected world. It was launched through a series of experiments known collectively as the Hole in the Wall Project. The experiments spanned more than a decade and were spread across 5 continents, and they revealed a great deal about how learning happens and how consciousness develops. So this book is really 97 pages long, and half of this book was about the hole in the wall experiment, and then the other half, which is the latter, was for SOUL, which is the strategy that they want us to integrate in our classrooms if we wanted to, right? So this experiment was started in New Delhi as an experiment, but then later was put, some computers in India, which is a picture that you saw. It was a photo in India, and it was a case study that lasted 10 years. And I want to go back to this thing because the hole in the wall experiment was an experiment where they put a computer in a wall, right, in a random wall basically, and they wanted to see if these kids can learn how to use the computer without any help, without any instruction. So these kids knew nothing about the computer, and remember, in India, there is poverty. So these kids, didn't know how to read, didn't know how to write. So it really is just from scratch. Basically, how do you use this computer that you've never seen before? How do you use it when there are no instructions, just a mouse pad, right, and a screen, and all these little icons. What can these icons do? And throughout the experiment, they did these kids did learn how to use these computers by basically just sharing out with other kids. So like, let's say a kid right here, learns how to crop an image, right? Just as an example. And this kid in the middle knows how to, search the web. How are these two going to learn what the other learned? Well, they share information. That's what, as a group, these kids, they would share information and they would learn from each other. And eventually they all learn what each or many of the icons would do. They knew how to finally search the web, knew how to do a lot of things that, well, in the beginning, they didn't know how, right? Because it was an experiment to see if they could learn this by themselves without the help of teachers or any adult. And I say this because adults did try to use this computer, right? These computers, but this right here, and then this is the screen right here. So it would be very uncomfortable for someone who was taller, such as a size of an adult, to use these computers, because they were only used for children. But these only like 10% of the adults actually use the computers, and I will tell you later what they used it for, because it wasn't okay. Yeah, I'll just show you later. So at pages 55 to 97, they did try to integrate the SOUL strategy, where kids would be, where you in the school would be able to, you the teacher, right, would be able to integrate one computer in a room, just in a room, a clear room, right, where teachers, anyone can see what they're doing, but just a room with just the students, enough space for them not to be crowded, and see what they would do with the computer, how much they would learn, right? Because if you're in school, you already know what those basics, but how can these children, in other words, teach themselves or teach the others around them or their group? And it was a really great book. And honestly, what you should read it is for upcoming teachers, and how we can integrate this idea of self-teaching into the classroom without the teacher teaching, if that makes sense. We can adopt great ideas, and it really does give students the liberty to do whatever they want to in regards to teaching, in regards to learning. And like I said, it is really technology driven. In this new world, we have to learn new ways of students being able to teach. And maybe the newest way is for the teacher not to teach at all, and for students to learn from each other. Because like I said, teachers were not able to help, or adults were not able to intervene. It's really just for students and students only. This doesn't there really is no clear thesis as the book gives out, but I came up with some of what I thought the author wanted us, the readers, to come across of. And that's what I'm trying to say is that the technology is a gateway to the future. Obviously, if you don't know technology, you are behind. And really, we should learn new strategies and how we can integrate all of this into the educational realm. And it gives children an opportunity to learn for themselves, really fend for themselves in a way where teachers are not really making you learn, but children want to learn. And like I said, there is no outside interference, which leads to a group dynamic and how these children interact with each other, instead of let's say, higher force not interrupting them. And my analysis really is the experiment was educational. I encourage you all to look into the experiment, because Mitra does make good points that I did not mention, I cannot mention, because lack of time, and just because I can't go through all the pages and tell you what. But he does provide that. He did this experiment because he wanted to know if these students were driven enough to learn something entirely new by themselves, and they were. All of these were great points that he made, but honestly, I do disagree with the lack of no teacher being present, because without a teacher, how are teachers supposed to keep their job in a way, And that kind of worries me, because I want to be a teacher, and if every school district integrated the SOL, self-organized learning, what would happen to the occupation of teachers overall in general? Like I said, right now, what would happen to the teachers if students can teach themselves? Really no use for teachers then, which is scary. And the conclusion, which is strengths that I thought that the book shows great examples, which all ties back to the hole in the wall, which is really primarily what this whole thing was about. Instead of the soul, right, I focus more on the hole in the wall experiment, which I honestly think was a weakness, because it could have showed us more ways to get involved than just telling us some tips and tricks of how to do it. Show us, and the author really showed us that any questions that I didn't have any of these, right? But I put adult usage, like I said, how would, they put it in a way where only children were supposed to use it, and adults would have to be uncomfortable to use it because it was so small, right? It was only child-sized, if that makes sense. So how would, if adults used it, or, pornographic material? And, the author did say that only about 10% of people, and only that 10% was adults that used the computer for porn and adult usage. So it's interesting to see that only the adults used this. I didn't have any of these answers because he answered these questions before we had any, but it was nice for the author to put in this type of example of adults using the computers that were solely for educational use and for students only, and how these adults used them for their own benefit in a way. And I would say he also says but like after the experiment, he mentions that there was a kid that was in a game show, and because he was really smart, and they asked him like, "Oh wow, where'd you learn this?" And he said he got his start from one of these hole-in-the-wall experiments, and they reached out to the author and they thanked him. It was a really touching moment for the author. And another weakness I just wanted to point out is that he doesn't really mention if schools should adopt this. He is pro, and he mentions and he targets teachers only, but not the school districts, if that makes sense. And I feel like it was just missing the whole idea of, wait a minute, why should we? If teachers don't have the green light, shouldn't you be going after the districts and asking them if teachers are able to do this? And yeah, so thank you for tuning in. And overall, this was a really good book. Beyond the Hole in the Wall, it was and the experiment was really beautiful. I thought it was really nice. And for some kid in India who used this in a game show later in life and got his start from the hole in the wall, it's just really amazing. And it was just really beautiful for someone who's never seen a computer, and how these kids were able to adapt to it without any instruction. It's like starting from scratch, starting to bake a cake from scratch with no instructions. It's really hard. Can you get it done? Yeah, within a couple tries, and with talking to other people, yeah, you may be able to do it. So it really is just beautiful, and how these kids were able to gain all this information from no adults at all. And really, this whole book is about beyond the hole in the wall, obviously, but it does not, and this is the weakness, that it does not really show us more examples of self-organized learning other than telling us how to do it if we wanted to do it. But overall, it's a really good book, and really no complaints. It was beautiful.